we are not rare. But before you leave, you will perceive the lore will be unlocked. You might be stalked by a Sasquatch or a ghost witch, possibly even a ghost that will boast about knowing the Ohio Grassman or even the Michigan Dogman. Werewolves hunt, poltergeists are up front, but in these backwoods folklore is unlocked.
Back to Folklore Unlocked. I'm Austin, and like always, I'm joined by Ethan.
Yep, hello again, everyone.
And this week, we are taking a look at the Hinterkaifeck Murders that happened on March 31st, 1922, over in Germany. And the victims were Andreas Gruber, Cecilia Gruber, 72, Victoria Gabriel, the widowed daughter of Andreas and Cecilia, Cecilia Gabriel, 7, Victoria's daughter, and Joseph, 2, Victoria's son, and Maria Baumgartner, 44, who is the family's maid.
Then the Hinterkaifeck farm was about 43 miles north of Munich, Germany, and it was built in 1863. And the name comes from Hinter, which is German for behind, and Kaifeck being the name of a local hamlet in which the farm was about a mile north of. And Kazilia had gotten ownership of the farm as part of a divorce settlement from her first husband, Joseph Asim.
And this is the elder Kazilia, if for clarification. And some more background is that Victoria married a man named Carl Gabriel on March 11th, 1914, with ownership of the Hinterkaifeck farm being transferred to them on the same date. And Carl was sent to fight in World War I and was reported killed in the Battle of Arras and on December 12th, 1914, but his body was never returned. And the younger Kazilia was born on January 9th, 1915.
And there were some incest allegations because Andreas and Victoria were convicted of having a sexual relationship in a Nuremberg court. Andreas was sentenced to 1 year in prison and Victoria to 1 month. Victoria then told her new boyfriend, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, that Joseph was a product of her father, continuing actions. Lorenz reported this in 1919, and Andreas was not convicted on this charge, and Lorenz was then adopted Joseph as his own.
So yeah, there's dynamics in play.
You could say that, yeah.
And there were other strange things in the lead up to the murders that were reported in and around the farm. Christine Serriger, the Gruber's first maid, had quit 6 months before the murders, believing it was haunted because she heard sounds in the attic that sounded like footsteps. And in March 1922, Andreas had found a newspaper from Munich which nobody in the family or the local area had subscribed to. And in the days leading up to her, Andreas had told neighbors that he had found footsteps in the fresh snow leading from the forest to a door with a broken lock in the barn. And this door would lead to an engine room.
Now, you see, I've heard way too many stories about people living in other people's attics and them not knowing. So, instantly hearing, oh, she thought the house was haunted because she heard footsteps in the attic, and then them finding, like, newspapers from Munich, which nobody lived around there. I'm sitting here, I'm like, there could have been someone living in the attic.
Oh, most definitely.
Then, March 31st of April to April 1st of 1922. So on March 31st, 1922, Maria Baumgartner arrived for her first day with her sister escorting her, and Maria's sister is likely the last to see the victims alive. So the killers lured Victoria, Andreas, and both Casilias to the barn stable and murdered one after another using a mattock. The killers moved into the house and killed Joseph in his bassinet and Maria in her bedchamber.
So, yeah, it was kind of a clinical thing, so to say. On April 1st, 1922, coffee sellers Hans and Edward Shurovsky came by to get an order, but they left after no one answered their knocks and or noticed that they were there. And the younger Kazili was absent from school for several days. The Gruber family also missed Sunday worship. And on April 4th, a local mechanic named Albert Hoffner came by to repair an engine, which he did alone after not being able to find anybody, and left after roughly 4.5 hours. And Lorenz Schlinbauer sent his son Johann, who was 16, and stepson Joseph Dick, 9, to check on the homestead. And Lorenz visited the farm after the two reported saying they didn't see anything. And Lorenz brought Michael Pohl and Jacob Seigel, and they found the bodies after that.
So the investigation was difficult due to the fact that onlookers had moved the bodies and items in the barn, and they also had cooked meals in the Gruber kitchen. So evidence showed that Casilia the Younger had been alive for hours after the attacks. And then evidence also showed that the cattle had been recently fed, the entire supply of bread being gone, and the meat from the pantry being recently cut, suggested that the killers had stayed for a couple days after the murders.
So, in my opinion, there's two real, I get real in parentheses here, suspects that may have been involved. And the first suspect is Victoria's husband, Carl Gabriel. And like we mentioned, he was reportedly killed in action. His body was never recovered. And at the end, 2 war prisoners were captives, reported being sent home by a German-speaking Soviet officer claiming to be the Hinterkaifeck murderer. But some of these war prisoners revised their statements and Joseph Bickler and Nicholas Haas, who served with Carl in World War One, said they had positively identified his body.
So I guess it all comes down to if we trust Joseph and Nicholas there.
Pretty much, yes.
So then there is suspect number 2, which is Lorenz Schlittenbauer. Suspicions early in the investigation, and there was Paul, Sigel, and Schlittenbauer broke a gate to enter the barn. Schlittenbauer unlocked the front door easily, of course, and the key had gone missing from the Gruber house. Also, the moved bodies.
But Victoria could have given Schlittenbauer the key that had gone missing without, Andreas and, the elder Kazilia knowing. So that brings us to our thoughts. I think based on the circumstantial evidence that Schlittenbauer's the most likely suspect, but at least in America, no one can convict a person based solely on circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, I agree that with the information we have, it most likely is probably Lorenz Schlittenbauer. She's the most likely suspect. But it kind of sucks that there was all those people that were moving around the bodies and even making food in the kitchen and stuff like that to kind of get rid of evidence and stuff. And then also it's kind of, I don't really suspect Carl because it's kind of weird that he would fake his death to do that. I don't know. That seems kind of weird.
I mean, this is the second time that somebody's moved around food in a case that we've covered within the past month with the Kaifeck Murders and now this. And it's kind of odd that in both cases it was a case of mass murder.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's all we've got for this week. Any last words, Ethan?
Just thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're on Spotify, leave us a comment and a follow. And we'll see you next week.
You might wake up beside Spearfinger with an extended visit from Jack the Ripper. But if you're lucky, it'll be an angel on that range hill of Louisiana. You might meet Marie Laveau or the Road. At Folklore Unlocked, Austin and Ethan concoct their theory of the eerie and unexplained around the world, sometimes even the underworld. The lore is locked behind secrets, but folklore is meant to be unlocked. The Sokaloo is haunting NC as well as Tennessee. There are many giants that might be clients of the Dark Watchers, who might have psychokinesis. And the phantom time hypothesis is like a phoenix, coming back around again and again. The laser strain on your brain if you got more than 2 brain cells in you. Some believe McCartney's dead because they read into the Mandela effect, which is subject